All right, so everyone wants to understand Donald Trump, right? I mean, he's everywhere.
Oh, he is.
We've got a mountain of research here. I mean, articles and books and interviews, the whole nine yards,
Yeah.
starting from way back when he was just a kid in Queens, all the way to, well, his second term.
Right. Right.
It's pretty clear that you people have some strong opinions about him. One thing's for sure, his legacy, well, it's going to be debated for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
So let's try to figure out why. What makes him so, I don't know, polarizing?
To really understand his time in politics, we need to go back even further.
Yeah. Okay.
We got to look at the years before he even thought about the White House. Building up that family real estate empire, then boom, suddenly he's a reality TV star.
The Apprentice, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where he crafted that public image. I mean, think about it. That was his foundation.
Okay, so The Apprentice, some of the stuff we read called it like a training ground for his whole political style.
Yeah.
But other sources, they're saying it actually gave people this warped view of how good of a businessman he really was.
Hmm.
So which one is it?
It's probably both. I mean, there's no question The Apprentice made him a master of grabbing attention and, projecting this image of success.
Yeah.
But it also took these super complicated business deals and turned them into like these simple, dramatic boardroom showdowns.
Right. Right.
And some folks argue that kind of simplification followed him right into politics.
Interesting. So he rides that wave of fame right into the Oval Office.
Sure did.
A lot of what we found focuses on a few big things he did during that first term.
Yeah.
Immigration, those tax cuts, and oh boy, his approach to the environment. That really shook things up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was disruptive, no doubt. And it wasn't just domestic policy either.
Right.
That same kind of energy played out globally. The trade war with China, pulling out of international agreements, huge shifts in American foreign policy. I mean, he
Yes.
definitely made some waves.
Definitely. And then there's COVID-19. The sources really point to that as a major turning point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The thing is, we see this pattern where a lot of times he'd use humor and even exaggeration to kind of downplay how serious the virus was.
Right.
And based on these studies, that actually delayed the whole response, which ended up having, well, pretty serious consequences.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? His communication style, the one that had always kind of been his trademark, suddenly became central to this massive public health crisis.
And it seems like that's where a lot of the debate about his legacy really gets going. It's not just about the actual policies, it's how he led, how he talked to the country. Then, of course, we have to talk about the impeachments.
Oh, yeah.
Twice impeached, but never removed from office. Has that ever happened before in American history?
Nope, never. And those impeachments really highlight just how divided things were politically. But there's something else interesting. Even though he was acquitted both times, it kind of solidified this image of him as a fighter, someone who never backs down, even when he's under attack.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of that going around. It's almost impossible to talk about Trump without talking about the controversies,
Right.
all the accusations of misinformation, the divisive rhetoric.
Yeah.
I mean, we found examples everywhere.
But the important thing, I think, isn't just listing all the controversies, it's trying to understand what caused them.
Okay.
What we see in the research suggests that whether he meant to or not, some of the things he said, they tapped into these existing anxieties that people already had, these resentments.
Interesting.
And that really resonated with a certain group of voters, people who felt ignored, like the political establishment wasn't listening to them.
That brings us to the 2020 election and, well, the attack on the Capitol on January 6th.
Right.
The sources paint a really stark picture of how all those pre-existing anxieties and resentments, plus all the misinformation flying around, well, it kind of boiled over that day.
That was a turning point for sure, a really significant moment in American history. It showed just how fragile our democratic institutions really are and really made people question the role of political rhetoric in, well, inciting violence.
Heavy stuff. And then, just when you think the story's over, he pulls off this incredible comeback and wins in 2024. A second act for a former president who lost an election. Has that ever happened before?
Not really, and it tells us that his brand of populism still has a strong hold on a good chunk of the voters.
So after all that, we come back to that question we started with. Why is Trump's legacy so hotly debated?
It's because he embodies these completely opposite stories. For some folks, he's a hero, someone who shook things up and gave a voice to the voiceless.
Right.
But for others, he's dangerous. He's a threat to democracy itself, a source of all this division and distrust.
like we're looking through two different lenses.
Hmm.
So what does it all mean?
I think it makes us ask some tough questions about what we really want in a leader. What's the role of truth in this digital age where, everyone's got a voice online? And how do we fix the cracks that are so obvious in our society?
Big questions for sure. Well, we've gone through the good, the bad, the controversies, and that second act that nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
But here's something for you to think about. Knowing everything we know now, what will this second term look like?
Yeah.
And how will it affect his legacy, which is already incredibly complicated. Something worth considering.
Definitely.